Okay.
I think it's now,
I
it
mean,
says
technology is so. Oh, we are
now,
live. I see that we're live. Marzi's texting. I know, and blowing me a kiss, which means be quiet. Be quiet.
she's
Hello,
got
everyone. Yes. Hello. It's Tuesday, 4 o'clock Pacific, 7 o'clock Eastern, 1 a.m. in Italy for my honey, 8:30 a.m. Wednesday morning in Australia, and wherever you are in the world. If I didn't announce it, then please let us know. And send me some thumbs up or something so I know that you guys are out there. In the meantime, I'm going to go to my Facebook page so that I can see if we're here ourselves. And I always need to do this and just to make sure that everything's working. But while I'm looking for it, let me introduce our very special guest this week, Dr. Christine Schaffner, who is one of those physicians that once you've met them, you wonder, how did my family and I survive without her? You know, that you learn so much about the hidden triggers for disease. She is partners and works with one of the main mentors in the comprehensive healthcare world, Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, and in the Pacific Northwest. So Christine, welcome to Facebook Live here.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me, Dr. Tom. I'm really excited to have this conversation with you.
Oh my goodness, yes, as am I. And I'm still looking here. I'm always fixated on this. I've just got to see that we're here. So hang on, everyone. And I don't see any, I won't see any hearts if I don't find the event. Marzi says, stop. You're live. Okay, good. I'll stop. Okay. Thank God for the primary set of eyes, right? Good. Okay, so Dr. Christine has done what Marzi and I did with betrayal, in terms of spending months and months and months interviewing people, collecting information, putting it together in a summit for you. And it's called The Body Electric. Is that right, Christine? Is that the title?
Yep, it's The Body Electric. Mm-hmm.
Great. Can you tell us something about it, please?
Absolutely. So the name of the summit is the Body Electric Summit. And really my goal for the summit is to have a conversation around energy, frequency, and vibrational healing. And as you mentioned, Dr. Tom, my mentor and colleague, Dr. Klinghardt, who I work closely with, he's taught me so much, right? I've right out of school, I started working with him, and we see really sick patients from all over the country and even outside the country. And one of the things that he's always commented is to really fully recover, from a chronic illness, we have to employ tactics that use biochemistry, but also that employ biophysics. And so I couldn't call this the Biophysics Summit because that would be boring, right? But it's this whole
that would scare people.
I know. They workshopped this with me, but it's this whole whole field of medicine that just really acknowledges this component of our body. And I really wanted to have a conversation that was grounded in science to really share that we have this whole toolkit and whole framework to acknowledge that our body really communicates with electromagnetic energy in response to different frequency medicines and vibrational medicines. And so it was a ton of fun to put together. I learned a lot. I'm still, digesting all of these things and integrating them into my practice. But that was really the goal, especially if you're suffering out there and you feel stuck and you feel like you've tried a lot of things but haven't gotten the results. I want to really share there's this whole other toolkit to explore.
Can we start when we talk about energy medicine? Most people in our world today are going to say it's woo-woo. Mm-hmm. That what is energy medicine? I mean, give me a shot is what most of us have grown up with. So can we go to the 101 basics so that people can understand a little more of why this is very cool to take a look at?
Absolutely. And so I feel like this is a great time to look at this subject too, because there's also more awareness around these other technologies like EMF and how they're impacting our bodies. So when you have this other framework about how our body communicates, you can really, you can figure this out a little bit more. It doesn't seem woo. It's like, okay, this is how it works. And so, just bringing it back to conventional medicine, we know that our heart has a strong electromagnetic field. We measure that with technology called an EKG. That's very grounded in science. We know that we have brain waves that are measured with EEGs. So we have this electromagnetic field surrounding our body. And one of the speakers on the summit is Dr. Rubik, and I always like to share her work. She's one of these frontier scientists. She's has a biophysics degree, and she's a PhD from Berkeley, and she really brought this term biofield in the 1990s into PubMed, and so into the National Institutes of Health, and really brought this conversation that we have this electromagnetic field of energy that's measurable, that surrounds our body, and there are tools and therapeutics that work to help address this. And what kind of was a theme with a lot of the speakers I spoke to, who really acknowledge this and treat people all day long with acknowledging this part of our body, is that this biofield, if you will, is not just like an offshoot or an afterthought of our body, but it's actually a field of energy that is organizing and communicating and regulating our physical bodies. So when we're ill, we not only have to think about, all of the biochemical things to support our body, but how about if we can address and, and use tools to actually help create a term called more coherence or more flow in our biofield, so that our body has this flow of communication to really self-regulate and heal and tell the rest of our body what to do. So it's it's a big topic. I'm trying to dumb it down for everybody.
Let me, you bet. Let me start. You said a couple of things that I think most people can relate to, and I like to take it as far down to 101 as we can, so people can then let the yabba 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 in their brains just quiet down for a little bit, right? So you referenced an EKG. So everybody knows, an EKG, you put these electrodes on the chest and you're measuring what's the electrical wave of the heart. You aren't measuring the heartbeat. You're measuring the electricity that's causing the heartbeat. Right? That's activating the heartbeat. And an EEG is for the brain. Same thing. You put all these electrodes on and you sit there, and it's some people have seen the pictures of the test results, all these lines, and you're trying to figure out what they all mean. It looks like Greek. But we're measuring the electricity because it's the electricity from cell to cell that goes through the brain, from the brain through the nervous system to every cell in your body that tells your cells what to do. So if you've had the experience where, you're a little wired, you're a little keyed up, and you go for a walk in the woods or you go for a walk in the field, and the result is you feel better, what you've done is you've grounded yourself. So now I'm going to go from 101 to postdoc PhD. So Dr. Christine, could you tell us about the Schumann Wave? What is the Schumann Wave?
It's a frequency that the Earth naturally produces, that it has a great harmonizing effect on our physical body. Is it, correct me if I'm wrong, Dr. Tom, 7.83 or 38 hertz? 83 hertz, yeah. 7.83. I still have my baby brain. I can still, high five on that. And so I know, right? So this Schumann wave is, really important to our health. It's this connection that we have to the Earth. And when humans are blocked from this wave, there have been studies to show that it has a negative impact on our health. And Dr. Klinghart's German, and I've been able to go to Germany to Medicine Week, where there are all of these wonderful tools and technologies. Europe is really into biophysics, and they don't have as much. They have more regulation on supplements. And then the U.S., we have all these supplements, and we don't have all these, tools that use frequencies and acknowledges it. So, in Europe, they have all sorts of different devices to help simulate Schumann frequency to add more, kind of adding like more health to our biofield and our energy field to help balance the body. So the Schumann wave is something we're all connected with.
Exactly right. So the way I understand it and the way I first heard about it was the Russian cosmonauts. That the Russian cosmonauts, when they went into space, they got all airy-fairy headed and couldn't focus very well. And scientists tried to figure out, why did that happen? And what do we do about that? And what they realized was that there is this wavelength pattern that surrounds the planet and protects the planet from the radiation of the sun and all of that. And it keeps us grounded. And it's the Schumann wave. It's 7.83 megahertz. And when they put a Schumann wave generator in their space shuttles and spacecraft, they never had that problem again. And, I learned recently how Schumann waves are created on the planet. That's one of the purposes of lightning. Lightning creates Schumann waves. You increase the amount of Schumann waves in the area when there's lightning. And that's why after a thunderstorm, the air is fresh. And it's clean because there's more of that wavelength pattern that humans resonate with very well. So, when I was just starting my practice in 1980, we had an instrument called the electroacuoscope. And we would use it to treat different joint pains and different symptoms. And I'd use it on the ears for auricular acupuncture. But we also had a headband. And at the end of the day, I just lay down for 20 minutes with the headband, and it was set to 7.83. So it helped my brain generate more Schumann waves, the 7.83 megahertz. So by the time I went home, 30 minutes later, 40 minutes later, I was like, I had just meditated for an hour. All the stress of the day had calmed down. I mean, it was really quite remarkable to see. So I'm going to talk about how I first learned about electrical energy for everyone. And it's because it'll help you to understand why the experts that Dr. Christine has brought together, the world experts, are so cool to listen to. So this is my first week in my education, my very first week in school in Chicago, chiropractic school. And I saw that Dr. Sheldon Deal was coming to speak that weekend, Mr. Arizona. And I thought, oh, the guy's a bodybuilder. Okay, I'll go listen to this guy. I'm sure he's got some ideas about health. And so I went. And he had a color television on a stand in the room. And the color television was turned on, but the volume was turned off. So you just see the picture. This was 1978, January 1978. I know because it was my first week in school. And he walked over to his briefcase on another table, opened it up, and took out a bar magnet the size of an iPhone. And he held it up like a policeman holds a flashlight. And he walked up to the color television. The picture turned upside down. And when he walked away, the picture turned right side up. And he walked towards it, and the picture turned upside down. And he walked away, and the picture turned right side up. And he said, that's what electromagnetic energy does to your brain and your nervous system. It just it's called neurological switching. And so people that say right when they mean left, they write the number 3 backwards. When they want to move with their left foot and they can't quite, and they go with their right foot. Many times there's a neurological switching mechanism, which I use as a cue to look at electromagnetic pollution in their life. So if your child is writing things backwards, you want to think about this, and you'll learn so many concepts in Dr. Christine's summit from the experts. For example, I'm sure they talk about radio clocks next to the bed. It's on the nightstand, so it's right by your brain all night. And sometimes the wiring in those clocks is not very good, and it leaks electromagnetic pollution. Get it over on the dresser, right? So you'll learn all kinds of little things like that. But that's how I first learned about it. And back then, we weren't talking about cell phones. There were no cell phones. We were talking about electric watches and the dangers of a battery in a watch. which we now just take for granted and assume it's normal and okay, because there's so many other polluting devices that are so much more powerful. We don't think about the electric watches. So that's when I first learned about it, everyone. And I just want to say that there's so much credibility. For those of you that have read my book, You Can Fix Your Brain, you understand about the pyramid of health. And in the pyramid, I talk about 4 categories. There's the base, the platform, that's musculoskeletal. There's the biochemistry, that's what we eat and drink. There's the emotional or spiritual. And then the new one in the last decade, 2 decades, and never before in the history of humanity have we had to worry about, is the electromagnetic. So there are 4 different categories you have to look at. So this summit, the Body Electric, is all about the electromagnetic and how that pollution can cause brain dysfunction, neurological dysfunction. Well, what kind of conditions did your experts talk about?
Yeah, we have, and it's so interesting, right? How we, now we've come from like a battery operated watch, right, to the Apple Watch, right? We've come a long way, and, all of this has a cumulative stress on our body. And so, we talk a lot about, of course, the physical effects. So back to Dr. Rubik, she actually has talked a lot about 5G and how that is going to be impacting our, health. And she did studies on 4G, and she had actually, when people were wearing a cell phone with 4G, she did looked at their blood under a microscope, and she saw that it was more coagulated or clumpy. It would be called rouleau, or as a technical term.
Yeah.
So what she was finding is that when we're exposed to the technology like 4G, it actually makes our blood not flow as well in our body. And I really think about, when we think about the foundational aspects of health, it's all about blood flow. We get nutrients to our tissues, waste out of our tissues. So when our blood is, thick and clumpy, we're not able to, be as healthy as we want to be. And so that was one thing she demonstrated. And then we see everything.
I want to talk about it.
Sure.
Excuse me. I'd like to reinforce that, because I had a rouleau formation when we were at the Swiss Mountain Clinic.
Oh, yeah.
We do a blood draw, and you look at it under a microscope. It's called live cell. And that rouleau formation is also called the poker chip formation, because your red blood cells are stacked together on top of each other like a bunch of poker chips. And what does that mean? It means your red blood cells are like a big clot, this big clumpy thing all stuck together. So it's called a rouleau formation. It causes strokes. Why? Because your blood vessels are big, and they go to smaller blood vessels and smaller blood vessels and smaller, until you get down to the really tiny ones that only one red blood cell can go through at a time. And then they go into the veins, and the bigger veins, the bigger veins, the bigger veins. But the blood vessels get really tiny. And when you've got red blood cells that are in rouleau formation stuck together, they can't get through. They get stuck in your blood, in the smaller blood vessels. So as you learn about that, and it's so simple to identify it if you've got it. So this doctor, this expert in the summit will talk about rouleau formation and what it means. That's really very cool.
Yeah,
very cool.
no, and the empowering part of what she shared, and just a tidbit, one of the things that, we can make all of this complicated, and I absolutely think we should measure, our EMF exposure in our homes and our sleeping environment, and there's a lot that we can do there. But one of the things, most people have a smartphone these days, and just safe and smart usage of your smartphone can absolutely reduce your exposure, because distance is your friend when you're, using any of these technologies. So not having your smartphone on your body or near your head, having it at a distance when you're using that. She really made the point, let's not forget the simple things, don't shield your bedroom and then have your cell phone on your body all day long. And so I think that was empowering. And then, we talk about everything from insomnia and anxiety, heart palpitations, different neurological symptoms that can come up with EMF exposures. But we have a number of speakers who mentioned this, and then you had already mentioned, Dr. Tom, the impact of grounding, and how grounding and connecting with the earth can be one of the, I think, the best and easiest ways to help mitigate this cumulative stress from EMF that we're all up against. And so when we're put our bare feet in the ground, we're not only in contact with the earth, but we're getting those electrons absorbed, through our feet. And that helps to battle a lot of this stress and inflammation and free radical damage.
You
That
know, it sounds a little airy-fairy. It does sound airy-fairy to people that have never heard this before. But I tell you, everyone, this is true. You go walk, you do the pretty woman thing, and go walk in the grass barefoot, and your life changes. You'll make new decisions in life. But there's a couple of questions that have come in that I'd like to address. First, Holly says, interesting. When my dad would wear a watch for a few days, it would stop working. So he stopped wearing them. That's exactly right, Holly. And there are people out there, when they work with computers, the computers don't work right. Well, that often suggests that you're electromagnetically out of balance. And that means this world might be something just to take a look at, to see, is this quadrant of the 4 quadrants of the pyramid one that I have to put some attention on? So that was a really good observation, Holly, on your part. Terry says, a lot of officers are being diagnosed with glioblastomas. That's a brain tumor. Radios on their shoulders makes me wonder. Dr. Christine, do you have any comments about that one?
Yeah, I don't think there's anything random going on in the body. And there are, there is an increase of brain tumors, nowadays. And I do think I've seen a few studies linking that to the increase in cell phone usage. And when we're putting a cell phone or a radio wave, the radio device on our shoulder in the proximity, that we can increase the signs of inflammation in the brain. And I think that's well documented at this point.
Yeah, I agree. Margie says, hello from down under. Love to Dr. Tom and Marzie. Thank you. Or not Marzie didn't say that. I'm sorry. Margie said that. Marzie says, oh, this was at the beginning. She says, say something so the theDr.com knows you're here. Okay. So, all right. So that worked. We got past that one. I'm looking forward to the explanation about the color TV. That comes from Patrice. Well, Patrice, they improved on color television, so they weren't so electromagnetically sensitive anymore. So that didn't happen after a while. But in 1978, those TVs, you could see as a magnet got close to them, they would just reverse. The picture would reverse. And that was my first week in my education. Well, I'm just starting to study anatomy and genetics and organic chemistry. Then all of a sudden, here comes this woo-woo stuff. Right there, really just made me sit back and wonder. And but it opened up my eyes immediately that there was more than just what the textbooks were saying, and that I needed to learn more about this. Let's see. The next question is, Jenny asks, what about infrared heating, sleeping blankets? I always wonder if the magnet and the electricity it uses harms our body. Dr. Christine, you want to comment on that?
Yeah, we tend to not recommend anything that's going to be plugged in, like an electric heating pad that can have a strong magnetic field that can be disruptive. There are a lot of technologies, though, with that being said, that understand this, and there are different mats that create healing, pulsed electromagnetic fields, or even use that in combination with infrared to help support the body. We use these mats, and so one's, using PEMF technology, and that increases and improves blood flow, so kind of does the opposite of that rouleau formation. It helps to increase, circulation. So we've seen that with the Beamer mat, no affiliation there, but just that's something that I've seen. And then with the infrared, the most common infrared mat that I see be helpful for patients is something called the biomat. It uses amethyst crystal and then infrared heat, and then infrared can help improve circulation. And then Dr. Pollack is actually on the summit, and he talks about this concept of the 4th phase of water, and this idea of what's called exclusion zone water. To keep it real simple, infrared can actually increase the exclusion zone water in our cells and in our bodies. And that's ultimately, going to make us more healthy and help our bodies detoxify better and have better blood flow and circulation.
Marvelous. Catherine asks, I'm looking forward to your summit. I deal with crazy fibromyalgia pain, including pain that is absent any external stimuli, including sensation of being stabbed, having electrical shocks, being bitten by insects, having fire ants crawling on me, etc. I've got doctors stumped. Would welcome your thoughts on how these crazy symptoms might be related or eased by what you're discussing.
Yeah, Catherine, I hear a lot of patients say, these symptoms that, don't always have this linear answer, for doctors to understand. And so often when we're looking at these range of neurological symptoms and different types of pain patterns, we look at things that can be what we call neurotoxic in the body. And so we look at the range of, things like heavy metals and how heavy metals can disrupt our neurons and our cell communication and increase pain. We also look a lot at Lyme and co-infections and how, these pathogens can also set us up for pain patterns that you're saying. So my first, recommendation is to work with a doctor who has this type of language that can help guide you to look at kind of the maybe stealth pathogens that are in your body that are affecting your nervous system, as well as the environmental burden that could also be impacting your nervous system. But with that being said, we have a lot of people in the summit who talk about different tools and technologies to help alleviate symptoms while you're dealing with the root cause. And one that I'd love to point you to is called frequency specific microcurrent. Dr. Carolyn McMakin she's wonderful, and she really kind of revived this technology, and it's using microcurrent to actually tell the body or communicate the body with what we call resonant frequencies to reduce pain and inflammation. And it can work quite well.
Yeah, there are hundreds of practitioners all over the world that are certified in Dr. Carolyn's work. She's been a good friend for many, many years, and her equipment that she came up with is just fabulous. And I'm so happy to hear your response, because my mind went to the same place. And if you're saying it, that I feel validated. Oh, great. Great. Okay, good. I'm on the right track. So, Catherine, what I would say to you and to everyone out there, when you get neurological symptoms that are strange, and you've had the right tests done, that neurologists do, you've had the MRIs and the neurological tests, and they can't find anything and they're stumped, then a large percentage of the time, what you're dealing with is an environmental toxin. Now, the environmental toxin is going to be chemicals in our environment. It's going to be metals in our environment. Like Dr. Christine says, it's going to be foods in your environment, but something in your environment that's gotten inside your body and is causing your immune system to be activated against it, and it's affecting your nerves. And that whole concept in general, that's not specific, but that's a big general concept. So you know how to start dialing this down with the experts like Dr. Christine is talking about, is elaborated on in both of my books. In the Autoimmune Fix, shameless plug here, the Autoimmune Fix and You Can Fix Your Brain, that we talk so much about, and this is my number one message to everyone now, in all of my talks. This is my primary message, is that the environment that we have, that we are born and raised in today, the children born today, and what all of us are living in, is toxic like never before in history. Never before. The textbooks from 10 years ago, 15 years ago are outdated because they didn't know all of the poisons and the toxins that accumulate inside our body. We now know, I think the latest study was that every newborn child in America has 280 toxic chemicals on average inside their bloodstream that aren't supposed to be there at birth, and many of them affect the brain. So you think about that, and if you really wrestle with that one, it's like, what? What? I mean, it's just hard to imagine. So Marzi just texted me and said 180. I said, no, honey, it's 280. It was about 200, but it's over 280 now. But thank you for keeping me on track. Okay, let's look for another question here. Luann asks, do copper or magnetic wristbands work for stress?
I don't have much experience with those technologies. I know there's a lot of technologies and tools out there to help mitigate the stress that EMF has on our bodies, as well as balance our energy body. And so there's a lot of tools out there. I don't use that personally, but that doesn't mean that that can't be something that could be supportive for you. I think at the end of the day, when you're trying these things, you should feel better. Like there should be some sense that, you're feeling better and supported, and you're not obviously feeling worse from these things.
Right, right. The copper wristbands and copper bracelets and using copper. That was Rudolf Steiner that talked about that a lot back in the, I think it was the 1950s and 60s. I'm not sure of his date. Might have been a little somewhere around there anyway.
Yeah.
Somewhere about that time. And he talked about it. And I used to take copper wire and I'd put it in a pyramid fashion under the mattress of my bed. You know, when I was in schools, you know, I was a little woo-woo out there. Some people would think. But and I would do copper wire on the shelf in the bathroom and leave my razor there when I, you know, and I'd take it to shave. And the razor blades lasted much long, literally 2 months, 3 months, when razor blades normally don't last that long. But Steiner or someone had written about that. And I said, oh, I'll try that. Let's see. And it worked. Because I change razor blades when I start to like nick myself. I say, oh, all right, it's time to change it. But at that point, having it under copper, it lasted much longer, or surrounded by copper. So I think there is something to copper helping to stabilize your electromagnetics, but I'm not an expert in it. And I think, as Dr. Christina is saying, I think there's a number of different tools that you can use nowadays for that. Let's see. Cindy is asking, when my mom died, her watch stopped at that very second, week before I had just put a new battery in it. Wow. That's really interesting. That's really interesting. Kay asks, what about far infrared saunas? Dr. Christine?
Yeah, you know, we use them all the time. You know, I think sauna therapy is excellent. I think there is also studies, just a typical sauna, getting your body to sweat. I know I think the study, Dr. Tom, was in Finland, I believe, where they showed a cohort that did sauna therapy. There was a reduction in Alzheimer's, and it wasn't a fancy far infrared sauna. So we know just sweating and that's a huge route of elimination to get, you know, a lot of these environmental exposures, you know, out of our body. If you have access to infrared sauna, I think that they can be very helpful, because they're going to not only allow your body to sweat, but again, when you learn about the fourth phase of water and exclusion zone water and how water is structured in our cells, and how this is a foundational part of our cell's ability to really detoxify and communicate, that infrared is a really wonderful tool to implement into kind of your lifestyle. And so this is a great way to do that. So I'm a fan of infrared saunas. I do caution if you're sick out there and you're just, you know, you're going in the sauna and you feel worse, you're not ready to sauna. You need to get a little bit stronger before doing that. And then I always love to have people do electrolytes. So that's going to be, you know, what you can add to your water to just keep your electrolytes balanced, because you're going to be sweating and you might be depleting those. So those are things like sodium and potassium and magnesium and phosphorus. And then we also use binders, something like chlorella or, you know, a specialized, you know, product that helps to, you know, bind, you know, any mobilization of toxins that are mobilized when your body starts sweating. So there's some strategies to optimize sauna therapy. And then again, sauna, if you're feeling too tired or too weak, either it's not time to do it or you're in there too long.
Right. I fully agree. We have to, and first, I fully agree with saunas are excellent for people. Many studies show reducing blood pressure, reducing cholesterol, reducing stress responses, helping to calm you down. But saunas fall under the category of detoxing. And there's a general rule of thumb. You don't detox until you're hydrated. So you don't try to mobilize crud out of your body and out of your cells unless you've got the highway working well enough to flush this stuff and get it out. So yes, you get some out with sweat, and they've analyzed sweat and they find heavy metals like mercury and aluminum. It's great to get that stuff out, but that's only a percentage of what gets mobilized. The rest of it's in your lymphatics and it's in your bloodstream. And so if you don't have good detox, then you can accumulate more of these toxins that were stored in your muscles, as an example, and they get into your brain. So you have to make sure that your detox pathways are working well. How do you do that? The goal is to have bowel movements that you just want to tell your spouse, I just had the best bowel movement. It feels great. I mean, that's the kind of bowel movements that we all want to have. And the first thing for that is make sure you drink enough water. It's a half ounce per pound body weight, minimum, half ounce per pound body weight. And there's other things like taking the absorptive sponges that Dr. Christine's talking about, like granulated charcoal. The product that we like a lot is GI Detox. It's on our site.
I like that one too.
Biobotanical. Yeah, it's great. Marzi will put a link in there for that. Also, Marzi will put the link in for the summit so that you guys can click on it and register for the summit so that you'll get the announcements of when it's going to start. And when is it going to start, Dr. Christine?
It airs October 7th through the 13th. So you can listen live during that week.
Marvelous, marvelous. Who was it who just said Luann? Luann says, I'm going for a walk in the park tonight. Great.
It's a good idea.
That's the spirit. That's what we want. Let's see. Tiffany asks, do you recommend a brand or type of PEMF machine for personal use, and how often would you use it?
You know, I don't know about the home units yet. We have kind of a fancier one from Dr. Gary Gordon's connections for the office. It's more for like an office or clinical setting. But to be honest, he just reached out maybe 2 weeks ago that they're working on making a home unit, so a more affordable, accessible one. So that's one type of PEM technology. And then when I recommended or mentioned mats, so there are also different mats. So the PEMs that I was just talking about are they have these coils and they have this pulsed electromagnetic field that you can kind of place on different body parts. And then they have mats, and one mat is called the Beamer mat. And it uses PEMF technology to help support blood flow. And it comes out of Germany, and they have done studies to show before and after of live blood cell analysis to show, how the blood is flowing. So, and the fun part about having these conversations with the summit and kind of where medicine is going, there's so many home tools and technologies that are, on the market, from saunas to different red and far infrared light therapies to, you name it. There's just a lot more tools to have at home that you have access to, which is really exciting for us.
I agree. I fully agree. And I've heard many of my friends who are really good functional medicine practitioners talking about Beamer mats, that they say these things work and patients really like them. So I don't have a personal experience with the Beamer mat, but I've had a number of doctors who I respect, like Dr. Christine, talking about it and giving credibility to it. Lisa asks, what about if you're having difficulty absorbing nutrients? Is there any way that you can still take advantage of Santa therapy? I think she means sauna therapy.
It's a new therapy,
Right, it might be a new therapy. Okay, so if you're having difficulty absorbing nutrients, can you still take advantage of sauna therapy?
I absolutely think so. Most of my patients are having trouble absorbing nutrients, when we start working with them. Again, you want to do this at the right time, but you just want to be mindful of that. And then you're going to want to support and supplement. That's what supplementation is for when you're having a hard time getting what we want from your food. And so, being mindful of electrolytes and trace minerals, depending on how depleted you are. We do a lot of IV therapy in our office. And so IVs can be a tool at a period of time, depending on what you're going with. And we give you nutrition through your veins. We bypass your gut. So you get, a really nice dose of nutrition that can help your body repair and detoxify and, all of that good stuff. So if you're really struggling out there, IV therapy is kind of a really wonderful tool. If you don't have access to that, I like a lot of liquid minerals and electrolytes to add to your water, and then you can use that throughout the day.
I fully agree. I actually, I'm back in San Diego right now, and I took my friend, Dr. Lauren Noel, out to dinner last night with her. I think he's about 6-month-old little boy, and it was a lot of fun. And I always go to Dr. Noel's office to get an IV when I'm in town, and I'm going tomorrow because it boosts your reserves right away, So you sit there for a half hour, they put a needle in, and it's just this drip going in. Doesn't hurt at all. I sit there, and I actually, what I do usually is just close my eyes and sleep for a while. And then, feel a lot different afterwards, but the next day I feel like $1,000,000. It's like some of those nutrients have to get absorbed into the cells. They're in the bloodstream, but they have to get absorbed into the cells. And it always just raises my operating level a little bit. So if you're having a hard time absorbing nutrients, I fully agree. If you can find a practitioner in your area that does IB nutrition, great. And if not, I'd go see Dr. Christine in Seattle, and because they're some of the best in the world. People come from all over the world to them. Okay. Let's see. Linda says, my husband died from glioblastoma after many years on his cell phone. He always used the same ear and spent many hours. So I'm really sorry, Linda, that happened to you. But you are saying that there may be a correlation here. He had a Samsung several years ago that got really hot, which is probably when the tumor started. He passed 3 months after diagnosis. I worked for the phone company for 25 years. So there are many things going on behind the scenes public doesn't know about. My family now uses safe cases for our phones. That's the Pong, everyone, or something like that. You've heard me talk about it. This is a Pong case, P-O-N-G. And I don't know if they're the best or not. Dr. Christine may have a brand that she likes, but I know the Pong works. My car, as I walk up to my car with my car keys, the key sends a message, here we come, and the lights by the door handle shine down on the ground at night, and the interior dome lights go on, right? But if I'm holding my phone in the hand with my car keys, as I walk up to the car, the lights don't go on. And I hit the door handle and it won't unlock. I say, oh, wait, oh yeah. And I have to take the phone out of the hand with the car keys, then the lights go on right away. So I know that the phone is working to inhibit transmission to some degree. And so it's great, this is good. All right, there might be a better one. Dr. Christine, do you have one that you like specifically?
No, I like the Pong. I like Defender's Shield. They have some great technologies, especially for when you're using the phone, the air tube earphones. I don't have those on right now because I wouldn't be able to do this this recording, but we have the air tube and they've gotten a lot better. To be honest, I got a pair like a number of years ago and I couldn't even use the phone because they had a very short lifespan, but now I can talk really clearly. And when you have an air tube it just increases the distance and prevents that EMF from concentrating in your brain.
Got it. Catherine asks, does not having a gallbladder affect the detox process?
It can absolutely create some challenges, but your liver still produces bile, and that bile still flows into the intestines, and it's still a huge route of elimination for your body. You might need to be a little bit more mindful of things, that support bile flow and decreased bile congestion, we would say. And so it's quite common, that a lot of our patients have their gallbladder removed before they see us because that's something that people do when they don't know what to do, what's wrong, and they have a lot of digestive issues. And so, but it's not, it won't prevent you from getting well. It's just going to be something that we need to be mindful of and supportive of. Not to take us down a rabbit hole, Dr. Tom, but I always like to mention scar therapy and how scars can affect the body. And so, when we have surgeries, even a little scar with a gallbladder removal, I've been trained in something called neurotherapy, and scars can actually affect lymph drainage and the fascia underneath the scar. It can also hold emotional trauma if you want to go down that rabbit hole, but you can either use topical massage or work with a practitioner who uses neurotherapy to help break down the scar. And that, I've seen scar injections when people have had their gallbladder removed be quite helpful for their overall health and their body's ability to detox.
I fully agree. One of the mentors for Dr. Klinghardt, and I actually had breakfast with Dr. Klinghardt last week, and I was in Seattle teaching, and he was kind enough to come in early in the morning. We had a 7 a.m. breakfast because I was on stage that day, and it was great. It was really great to spend time with him, and we reminisced that for both of us, one of our mentors that we learned so much from was Dr. George Goodhart. the founder of muscle testing called Applied Kinesiology. And he was my first mentor. And Dr. Goodhart would talk about scars. And he'd say, if you look, you have to look at the entire body when you see someone. And he would say, look with eyes that see. Listen with ears that hear. And I used to think, what is he talking about? You know, because you look over the body, and this happened to me a couple of times, you look, and then you don't notice, you know, for example, in my case, here's a scar right here. I don't know if it's visible at all. There's a slight scar, and it's from a bicycle accident many years ago. And you want your scars to be as close to the color of the skin around the scar as possible. So anytime, look at all of the scars on your body and your children's bodies, and if you see that the scar is white, that means it's anemic. There's not enough energy there. So you want to do something, so there's an energy blockage there. And, you know, we're all energy fields. You'll learn a whole lot about that in Dr. Christine's Summit. And you don't want these blockages of your energy. So we would do two things. If they were in the office with a scar like this, we would try to move the skin around that scar. If it's on the arm, move the arm around while I'm spraying it with ethyl chloride, a really cold spray. I mean, it's cold. And if it's at home, what you can do at home is take an ice cube and just put an ice cube on the scar of your knee and roll your foot around. Just move your foot, stretch it, open the leg, close the leg a little bit, rotate the leg one way and the other while you're doing an ice cube over it. And as you're not going to fix it in a day, but what you're doing is you're putting a little tension of the brain on this area of the body to begin to bring balance back to the tissue around that scar. Now, much more advanced therapy is neural therapy that Dr. Christine's talking about and she's trained in. But you know, if your doctor's not trained in that, or if you're at home and you just want to work, so if you see you got a white scar, you got a problem that it's going to affect the energy flow through your body. Now, I know we're getting a little woo-woo for some of you, but there's a reason for this. I mean, it's actually true. The electromagnetics are a critical component of our health. So if you've got a scar that's not the same color, it can be really dark, and there can be a whole lot of energy around there, almost like it's on fire or inflamed, or it can be really light. So it's very safe to do that with an ice cube and just rotate the skin while the cold is there for 15 seconds, 20 seconds, you know, nothing major. And do it like once a day for 2 weeks and see what happens. It won't take too long, but you'll know. Take a picture with your phone, because we've got these phones now. It's so easy to take a picture, right? Because in 2 weeks, because you're looking at it every day, oh, it looks the same. Oh, it looks the same. But when you take a picture of that and then go back and look at the one from 2 weeks ago, oh, look, it's a little closer to the color of the skin around. Oh, cool. Because it's such a subtle change cell by cell that happens.
Yeah, it's one of the most rewarding things that we do in the office. So I'm so glad you have a home tool as well.
Yes. David says, what about muscle testing for substances, foods your body likes or rejects? How does this work with the body's EMF field?
So is David asking, how does muscle testing work to identify if your body likes something or rejects something? Is that the question?
I would suspect that's what he means.
Okay. Well, that's, a whole other conversation, but I can just add my, 2 cents to this. So Dr. Klinghardt developed a form of muscle testing called autonomic response testing, and that's what I'm trained in. And so he studied with all of these, masters like Dr. Goodhart and Dr. Nogier and Dr. Voll, and he, formulated his own system, based on how the body communicates, not only with changes in muscle strength, but we're using concepts of something called the biophoton theory. He talks about it in the summit. I don't want to bore you guys too much with going down that rabbit hole, but and I think it's quite fascinating, but it's this whole idea how that all living things, have these low level emissions of light, and how we can, when we can pick up if there's a healthy body or tissue, about how the light is emitted from the body. And so we use changes in muscle strength to determine whether or not there's coherent light or disordered light coming out of the body. So that's in a nutshell what we're doing. And it's a great question, David, and this is a wonderful tool that we use in the office. But to keep it real simple, this system helps us to identify where there's stress in the body and what can help us alleviate that stress. And so we can, look at scars, we can look at amalgams, we can look at these other things. And then if there's a substance that creates stress in the body, like gluten or, corn or what have you. And so you want to work with a skilled practitioner, who really, does this all day long and is confident in their technique. And then I always like to say, you can have the technique, but the doctor is kind of the computer. You also have to have this framework and this knowledge base to make apply what you're finding and to help put that into a really safe and effective protocol for people. But it's an art, and I love using this all day long. And I honestly don't know how I would treat patients without it, because we deal with such complex things that it helps to prioritize, and we just really listen to the patient's body, which is just such a gift to be able to do.
Really is. Dr. Goodhart's phrase is, with every course, every time, he'd say this multiple times during the day: body language never lies. You just have to learn how to read body. Some people speak French, some people speak Spanish. Not very many people speak body. They just don't know, what all these little things. So the URL is here. I can see Marzi's got it posted so that you can click to register for the event now or after our Facebook Live is done, but it's here for you. Everyone who's here today, please register. I mean, Dr. Christine, you guys, I think you may have a sense of what it takes, but maybe not. Months and months and months of work at no pay, to do this, but really to carry the message out. I mean, there's nobody paying Dr. Christine to interview all of these docs or for Marzi and I to do this. It was really out of a passion to carry the message out to the world. So please register for this, and so that she gets the support from us and knows that we're out there and that we are supporting her. Petya says, what do you recommend for kids detox? Well, I'm going to start on that one. The first thing is hydrate. We have to hydrate, just the basics. I mean, everybody's looking for, what's the magic pill? What pill can I use for this? Or what pill can I use for that? But the mechanisms of detoxing are comprehensive and sometimes complicated. So it's really hard to shotgun an answer for kids in general. But Dr. Christine, is there something and some component of that answer that you would like to say?
Yeah, we love giving children chlorella, which is a blue-green algae that's packed with nutrition, and it also helps their little bodies to deal with the 280 chemicals that they're all starting with, and the exposures. So we love binders. I'm a big believer in hydration as well, and good nutrition and good minerals, because we need minerals to detoxify. And then there are some simple tools in the naturopathic world. We like castor oil packs, which is putting a castor oil over the liver, and that can be really safe and gentle for little kiddos, and just making sure that their elimination is going well. So making sure that they're having bowel movements and they're not constipated, and all of that. But no, depending on what your child is dealing with, you can absolutely do effective detox with children. But like Dr. Tom is saying, we just have to be mindful that we're all not starting from zero these days, and we need to just really impart on our children a lifestyle of detoxification.
Yes, amen to that. To everything you said. Kin says, just heard that you are in San Diego. No wonder the video keeps stalling. Rather frustrating. I'm sorry, Kim, I didn't know it's stalling. Dr. Christina, have you experienced a stalling?
I have not. I haven't seen that, but I know depending on, if you're watching your connection, sometimes that can happen. So I'm sure you can watch it again.
I've not experienced either. Yeah. So at this point, I'm going to say, I'm rubber and you're glue, right? It's your computer. Sorry, if that's happening, Ken. It's certainly not our intent, and we'll check it again in the future. Trang asks, hi, doctor, do phone signals and Wi-Fi signal influence thyroid?
Mm-hmm.
Dr.
Yeah,
Christine?
absolutely. I mean, I can't point to a good study to say that for sure, but I see that clinically a lot, that I have patients who have increased thyroid symptoms and sensitivities if they spend a lot of time in front of the computer. We even have a woman who makes these scarves that kind of shield the thyroid gland with a silver lined, material that can help block EMF radiation. The thyroid gland sits at the base of the neck, and it's just a highly vascular endocrine gland, and it can just be heavily influenced and kind of assaulted by environmental stressors, including EMF. So I do see that, and I do think that's important to acknowledge.
Agreed. I've seen the same thing very often. Lisa asks, I understand the smart meters are 100% more toxic than previously thought. Is that true?
I think that smart meters, definitely we need to be aware about the exposures that we're all getting, and to have informed kind of consent when these are being placed in our home. Josh Del Sol is a friend of the clinics, and he just put out a summit called the 5G Summit, but he has one of the first documentaries on this topic called Take Back Your Power. And I believe he has a website there that talks a lot about smart meters and communicating with your energy company in your city. And so some cities are more flexible for you to have opt out and have alternatives. You can measure the EMF exposure from a smart meter using an EMF measuring device. There's a simple one out there called the Cornet meter. There's fancier ones too, but it kind of has a red, yellow, green light kind of system, and you can see what the exposure is. And again, distance is going to be your friend. So if a smart meter is on the other wall of like your bedroom, that's something to worry about. But if it's on the other side of your home, that's something to think about too. But there are also shielding smart meter shielding covers these days. I'm not up to speed as much on those, but I think there's a lot more awareness, which is awesome, because there's going to be more solutions when you have more awareness.
Great answer. Thank you. And it just made me think of this. One of the health tools or medical tools that most family have in their home is a thermometer to check your children for fevers, right? Well, we're at the stage now. I've never heard anybody talk about this. I'm just thinking of it now. But we're at the stage that another health tool that we need in our home is a meter to measure EMF leakage. And they're a couple of $100, but they are so valuable. We were having patients take one home overnight back in the late 90s, mid 1995, 1996. They take it home and you just scan your house. You go along each wall and you go by a dimmer switch. There's a dimmer switch here. You go by the dimmer switch and you turn the lights on and you see. And it should be less than 3.0 on the meter that we use. Everyone's a little different, but it should be, and it would be at 0.4, 0.5, and you put this thing next to the dimmer switch and you turn it on and it goes to 18. And I go, whoa. But then as you walked away from it, when you're 2-3 feet away, it was down to 1.1, 1.2. So anything under 3 was okay. So what does that tell you? The wiring in the light switch is not very good, but its leakage is not very powerful. Don't stand against that wall all day, right? So that's how you would deal with that one. But when you have the meter, you check your television, you turn the television on and you go into the room on the other side of the wall, if that's your child's bedroom, and you see if the television being on is going right through the wall with radiation into your kid's room, that you check your house. So I think we all are at the stage now, because this electromagnetic frequency pollution is not going away. It's going to get worse. We're at the stage where every home should have this health tool, their own meter. And you check your computers, you check your cell phone, you just check everything as part of life, because this isn't going away. So that's an interesting concept.
No, I
Really
think that's a great tool.
Louise says, I've not seen video stalling. Marie says, not stalling here in Australia. So that it's your system, my friend. So sorry about that. And hopefully next time it'll be a little better for you. Patrice says, love the idea of the scarves. Please provide details. If you are comfortable doing that, if you don't want to overwhelm that, it's up to you.
Yeah. There are two companies I'd recommend. One is called Belly Armor, and they're actually made more for pregnant women, and they have all sorts of, blankets and, camisoles, and also, I don't believe they have a scarf, but they have different materials for shielding. And then there's a smaller company called Little Tree Group that she actually makes these scarves for our patients, and you can check out her site and contact her. And but the cool thing is there are more companies thinking about this, which is so exciting.
Marzi and I have the clothing, and we wear it when we fly. We have it in our carry-on bag, and before boarding the plane, we go in the bathroom, and Marzi puts on the shirt on top of whatever she's wearing, and and the socks and all of that. And I don't mind wearing that stuff, and if it's going to help, great. Is it going to harm me in some way? No. I spent $60, and I bought the shirt and the boxer shorts and the socks. Okay, so maybe it's going to help because I fly so much. So for anyone, I think protective clothing is a valuable concept, especially if you're exposed to a lot of, if you're in an area or if your meter says your house has a lot of leakage in it because something outside that you have no control over. There's situations where you might want to consider that more than others. Patrice says, is not iodine good protection for thyroid and impacts of EMF? Well, there's two things here. Iodine protection with nuclear radiation is something we've all heard about, and that may be what you're thinking of. But adequate iodine levels is really important for thyroid function overall. You bet. But too much iodine is also not good for thyroid function. So you just want to make sure you're not overdoing it with iodine levels. Michelle says, if you have a lot of metal from surgeries, and like she said, I feel like at night my whole body is a voltage machine, and I can't open up the rest of the metal. Oh, there it is. Please, plus sleep wear a breaker box. Am super sensitive to a smartphone, only using one ever for 4 years. What about that affecting my heart now? Well, I'll just say absolutely it can affect your heart if that's the weak link in your chain. It can affect your pulse rate. It can affect the EMF, the electromagnetic current of your heart. There was a fella who on the 5G summit, as you referenced that summit, that was a few months ago. I was on that summit, and this one fella talked about his wife was a pediatrician, and her father-in-law or her father had come to live with them, and after he moved in, he started getting atrial fibrillations. It's not very good, and they had to give him a pacemaker, because they couldn't stabilize it. And one day, some servicemen came and they found out there was a discussion, and the father had a pacemaker and didn't have it before he moved in. He said, "Oh, smart boxes can cause that." And he's, "What?" And the daughter, who's a pediatrician, said, "Well, that's just utter nonsense." But then she looked into it, and she found out they could. They took the smart meter out, and his pulse stabilized. He didn't need the pacemaker anymore. So yes, it may affect your heart function. Dr. Christine, would you like to add to that?
I've heard similar stories to that exact same one. So if you're having insomnia and or heart palpitations or any challenges with your heart, one of the first things I think about is let's control and mitigate for EMF, especially if it's come on randomly or suddenly. And it's so amazing how that tends to really help people feel better quite immediately. So there's something to that. I've seen that too.
Agreed. Agreed. Well, everyone, it's already an hour and 5 minutes that we've been here. I mean, it just goes so fast. It really does. So the link is here. Please click on the link, register. You may watch one episode, you may watch all the episodes, but you'll get the list of who's going to be speaking on what days, so that if your time is limited, you can choose what you want. But when you're doing something with Dr. Christine Schaffner and Dr. Dietrich Klinghardt, you're listening to the best in the world. And this topic is so important. They feel that the world needs to hear this. I think everyone should register for this and attend this summit. You'll pick up pearls that'll protect you and your family. So, Dr. Christine, thank you so much for taking the time to be here. We love you, love the work that you do and the message that you carry out to the world. Really happy to support you in this.
Oh, well, thank you so much for having me on today and being part of our summit and all the support. And I'm just so grateful. So thank you.
All right, everyone. Thank you so much. See you next week. Same time, same place. Bye-bye.